Today is April 23rd, 2025. Hunter here again at Weather on the Go, and we're going to be talking about severe weather as we go through the rest of the week. And then heading into next week, a more substantial risk for severe weather in a more widespread area as well. And then we're at the end of the video going to talk about the early May forecast and what you can expect out of that here as well. So make sure to subscribe to the channel. Subscribe down below by pressing obviously the subscribe button. Like the video, give it a thumbs up, and share this video with as many people as you can, friends, family, and on social media. Let's talk about the severe weather risk that we do see here heading into the evening, overnight hours. We have an area from the Midwest all the way down here into the plains, the Front Range. We're seeing some severe weather, even some isolated stronger storms into coastal Carolina and Georgia we are tracking here this evening and overnight. As we go into the day tomorrow on Thursday, April 24th, severe weather is continuing really across the same areas, the Front Range there in eastern Colorado, the central and southern plains from Kansas down into Oklahoma and Texas. Then as we go into Friday, again, more of the same areas here, Oklahoma down into Texas for severe weather. So let's track the severe weather that we see here in the short term, and that's this evening and this overnight hours here heading into tonight. We have in the dark green area, that is a 1 out of 5 on the risk scale. The higher the number, obviously a 5 out of 5 is the max, a 0 out of 5 is the lowest you can go. So we're looking here at a 1 out of 5 on the risk scale in dark green. In the yellow, it is a 2 out of 5 on the risk scale for severe weather, so a more heightened area of concern from southern Nebraska into Kansas, the Oklahoma panhandle and far west Oklahoma, all the way down into West Texas, including the Texas panhandle here. What the concern will be is for a couple of tornadoes that could spin up here from western Kansas down into the Oklahoma-Texas panhandle, and then an area here in far west Texas. Now, you do see this brown shaded color. That's a 5% chance of tornadoes within a 25-mile point of any location in and around this area. In the green, that's a 2% chance of tornadoes here, and the standard remains the same within a 25-mile radius of any area in and around this area. So we're keeping an eye on that. And then we're also looking at the large to even very large hail risk in the hatched area here that you see in western Kansas. We could be seeing hailstones of apple size or larger, so some pretty large hail as we go into the evening hours is the potential, as well as damaging winds. The damaging wind threat will be there, 60, 70 miles an hour, keeping a close eye on that. So let's kind of walk you through what the radar could look like as we go into the evening and overnight hours. Notice you got these isolated to widely scattered supercell thunderstorms all the way up even into Wisconsin as we go into the 7 o'clock hour here this evening, into Iowa, northwest Missouri, Kansas, and then down the dry line here into Oklahoma and Texas, keeping an eye on that. We go as far as 10 o'clock here late this evening, and you can see storms really starting to billow up across portions of western Kansas, western Oklahoma there into the Texas panhandle, and any one of these storms would be capable of any of those hazards we just talked about: tornadoes, damaging winds, large and even very large hail, those apple size hailstones, a couple of those tornadoes, so we'll keep an eye on that. Going into the 1 o'clock hour here in the morning, notice those storms really kind of sitting over those areas, so a flooding threat is going to be increasing as well, as these are a lot of slow moving storms and training too over the same area, so the flooding threat is going to increase overnight as saturated soils become apparent. And then as we go into tomorrow morning here, we're going to see a couple clusters of some severe thunderstorms. The first one up here in western Kansas, and then the second one down here into the Red River Valley into southwest Oklahoma. We're thinking the Lawton area, Fort Sill, down towards portions of Wichita Falls. Could have a good amount of some gusty winds on the leading edge of these clusters of storms that could cause some damage. Now, as we go into Thursday, we're going to be seeing the severe weather in very similar areas that we see today, like this evening and overnight. We're going to see another 1 out of 5 on the risk scale in the dark green here, from eastern Colorado into Kansas, into Oklahoma, and down into Texas. Be keeping a very close eye on that. Big cities at the risk here: Denver into Wichita, Oklahoma City, back here to Elk City, El Reno, over into Woodward, Oklahoma, Amarillo, Wichita Falls, Midland, and Lubbock. You guys are all in the risk. Even the Dallas-Fort Worth area as well, and you can see that here as I zoom it in. Some of those cities that we did mention are outlined in these areas. So again, we're talking eastern Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas here, and there is a small 2% chance of tornadoes in the green shaded color with within a 25-mile radius here of northeastern Texas Panhandle, western Oklahoma, and southwestern Kansas. We're keeping an eye on that. Ongoing thunderstorm clusters that we talked about late in the period. We're going to start tomorrow morning with some wet weather across the central southern plains. So if you're heading off to work or school, be watching out for that. Have a radar app handy, have an umbrella handy as well. Going into the noon hour, we're going to see that thunderstorm cluster in Kansas really kind of decaying as it pushes across the state. The thunderstorm cluster here in southwestern Oklahoma and northwest Texas will persist and actually should reach the Dallas-Fort Worth metro as we go into the midday hours on Thursday. We're thinking 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. would kind of be the arrival time for that. That'll push through, and then that could reignite more storms behind it across Lubbock and Midland with maybe some outflow boundaries or even that dry line back there that could be producing more lift for thunderstorms to really start to take off into the afternoon and evening there on Thursday. Then we go into Friday, April 25th, and similar areas again, the Texas Panhandle and West Texas up into Oklahoma, OKC, Lawton, Fort Sill, Amarillo, Wichita Falls, Lubbock, all the way to Midland. Yeah, we have another risk for severe weather. That's a 1 out of 5 on the risk scale there in dark green. Overall, this week going to be very active in the plains. So the plains are back alive with some thunderstorms, with some severe weather, and we could be dealing with multiple rounds of these, so they're going to be adding up some pretty heavy totals from really Nebraska up here into portions of Kansas, Oklahoma, and North Texas. A lot of these areas outlined in those yellow, orange, and red, seeing 1 to 3 inches generally of rainfall. That could extend northward into the Midwest, like Iowa, southern Minnesota, into northern Wisconsin too. And then we look here at the eastern U.S. While we could have a few rounds of thunderstorms, a lot of these are going to be non-severe, so we're not really talking about a lot of those tornado threats, damaging wind or hail threats or anything like that. These are going to be those popcorn kind of summertime thunderstorms that pop up the heat of the afternoon, 2, 3 o'clock, and then they dwindle once the sun sets, but they could produce some localized downpours, cloud to ground lightning. Every thunderstorm has lightning with it, obviously, and that could cause its own hazard too. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. But generally speaking, the heaviest rain, Tennessee Valley, the Dixie Alley down here, so Tennessee, Kentucky, Mississippi, northern Alabama, northern Georgia, the western Carolinas, we're looking at around a ½ inch to an inch of rain. This goes through Saturday, April 26th. And let's look at our temperatures that we saw this afternoon. It was a warm day. Spring-like temperatures here across the central and eastern U.S. got us into the 70s for a large chunk of these areas. Into the Midwest, for example, the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, 80s the further south you go towards the southern plains along the Gulf Coast. And into Florida, very dry, right? We have a drought going on down there. Drier ground typically heats up a lot faster, right? So we're going to be seeing low 90s, and that's what we saw this afternoon. And we're going to see that moving forward, even record highs possible there in Tampa Bay, Fort Myers, and Naples down there in Florida. A touch warmer in the Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic tomorrow on Thursday, April 24th. Could be taking our temperatures into the mid-80s in some areas, especially for Ohio. Cooling off a little bit back into the mid-70s for the Ohio Valley on Friday. Look at the Gulf Coast as we go in towards portions of Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida, Georgia. We're going to be heating up into the mid-upper 80s, some 90s out there on Friday, and going into the weekend, going to be pretty warm and warm enough for widespread record highs. New Orleans, Shreveport, Mobile, back into the Orlando area, Tampa Bay, going to see more record highs there heading into the latter half of the weekend. Now, going into the weekend itself, we got a ridge over the central and eastern U.S., and a ridge is typically going to be bringing us those warmer temperatures that we just showed you, but also a lot of sinking air, right? The air is sinking. So if you have sinking air, you're not going to get a lot of cloud cover, and obviously you're not going to get a lot of clouds that, really start to grow tall for thunderstorms. So what you're going to see is a big system. This is a big storm system moving into California, bringing us some moisture for the weekend on Friday into Saturday. This system is going to crawl east into Nevada, Utah, and Arizona as we go into Sunday and provide a little bit of some lift for some thunderstorm activity with a dry line in the Front Range back there towards the eastern Rockies, but the western plains And we have to watch some of the parameters and ingredients coming together for severe weather. Let's look at Saturday specifically right now. It looks like the moisture return is going to be mainly limited to Texas and Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana down here. So the thunderstorm potential is going to probably be more likely down there in the southern plains and the Red River Valley there on Saturday. Now look at Sunday. The moisture return goes all the way up to South Dakota with those 50, 60 degree dew points. We got the dry line here displacing the warm, moist, unstable air out ahead of it with the dry and stable air behind it. And look at the instability. So this is your storm fuel. The higher the number of, CAPE, right? Convective available potential energy, the higher the chance for thunderstorms and the better the chance for severe weather. Watch here as we go into Saturday afternoon. Notice those values. Yeah, they're in the greens and yellows. We're seeing 1,000, 2,000 joules per kilogram there, and that could get the job done for a few stronger thunderstorms. But watch Sunday. As we go into Sunday afternoon and evening, look along the dry line all the way up to the Dakotas here. We're talking of those yellow-orange areas, maybe some reds down here in Texas. That's 2,000, 3,000 joules per kilogram of some thunderstorm fuel. Typically for severe weather this time of year, you're looking at 1,000, 1,500 or higher for severe weather, and we have much of that across the Great Plains ahead of the dry line. Another aspect of severe weather that you need for at least a widespread mode of severe weather is really wind shear. Okay, and wind shear, basically, if a thunderstorm develops, it has to maintain its intensity, right, to be severe for a long period of time. Wind shear helps that, okay, and it helps to tilt an updraft to keep it healthy. And you can see the wind shear, not really a big player on Saturday, but as we go into Sunday, we have very diffluent air in the jet stream. And when we say diffluent, it means that we have air on the western side of the jet stream going north and on the eastern side of the jet stream going more east. And it's kind of unzipping like a zipper, right, across the middle of the country. And that's going to lead to a lot of lift in addition to that dry line. And we're lifting our air, right? It's not a high pressure system when we have sinking air that we're just talking about. It's lifting it up. So we get those big, tall thunderstorm clouds, and then we have some storms. So as we go into Saturday, could have maybe a couple clusters of showers and storms, could be severe with mainly hail, I think, down here into Texas and into the lower Mississippi Valley as we go into Saturday afternoon. Those storms should weaken overnight very quickly as the sun sets, as we don't have the wind shear, right, on Saturday. Going into Sunday, we're watching the dry line here, could have a couple renegade supercells. Now Sunday, there could be a capping inversion too, so very complicated forecast where we have a surface, it's very warm at the surface where we live, but above, for thunderstorms, you want a difference of heating, right? We want surface warming, we want cool air aloft for thunderstorm development. We might have some warm air aloft because of the lingering ridge in the central and eastern US, right, with the warmer air. So that actually may lead to less coverage of storms, but if storms get going, they would be supercellular, which means individual thunderstorms, and that could pose the risk for a couple tornadoes, hail, and wind as we go into Sunday, mainly afternoon into the early evening, because the wind shear really isn't that strong. Now going into next week is going to be a pretty warm start to the week as we go into the upper Midwest. Look at our temperatures, 25 degrees above normal there on Monday. And as we go into Tuesday, look at the warmth that spreads into the Ohio Valley, the Northeast. We could be 20 to 25 degrees above the norm. But here come the blues, and that is a cold front, and that's going to be bringing us the change of our temperature pattern by the middle of next week, and actually right at the end of April for Wednesday, April 30th, a week from today. So looking here at early next week, specifically Monday, April 28th, look at the 80s, and this could be a little bit conservative. I think there could be some mid 80s getting up into the Midwest potentially, if not on Monday into Tuesday across the Ohio Valley, mid-Atlantic, 70s all the way up toward Maine there, and more 90s down to the south toward the Gulf Coast and deep south. Now, we are going to see that cold front come through, so that is going to bring the clash of the air masses, right? We have the warm air, and then you have the cold air right behind it, and that's going to give us thunderstorm activity right in between. Here comes our big storm here in blue, and you can see it's going to be moving across the plains into the upper Midwest early next week, and we have the ingredients coming together that we're going to show you for severe weather early next week, Monday and Tuesday. Here's Monday's, April 28th, from portions of Wisconsin, Minnesota, down into Iowa, Missouri, eastern Nebraska, Kansas, into Oklahoma, perhaps even far northwest Texas. In the yellow here, that is a 2 out of 5 already, 6 days in advance on the risk scale. Then you go one step further. This is day 7. This is 7 days out. The placement of these could change a little bit, but this is, again, another 2 out of 5 across southern lower Michigan, northwest Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, southeastern Iowa, downstate Missouri into Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma, and northeast Texas. Again, don't get too comfortable with the placement of these quite yet. 6, 7 days out, things can certainly change, and we'll be here to talk about those changes if they do occur. But let's, in general, look at the risk, or at least the ingredients that are coming together for severe weather early next week. See the dew points on Monday morning, 60s all the way up into Minnesota and South Dakota. But as we go into the afternoon, look at that, all the way up plumb to the U.S.-Canadian border up toward Duluth, Minnesota. We have those 50s and 60-degree dew points, even 70-degree dew points down here into parts of the plains on Monday. And that could be enough for some severe weather. And then going into Tuesday, notice the cold front's going to scour out the moisture. But ahead of that, more 60, 70-degree dew points from the lower Great Lakes region and Ohio Valley back there towards the southern plains in Texas. Obviously, the higher the moisture, it's going to increase our storm potential with the storm energy. This is your CAPE, convective available potential energy. The higher the number, the better the chance really for thunderstorms and severe weather. Look at the 3,000s getting all the way up there into Iowa, Missouri, 4,000s in Kansas, down there into Oklahoma and Texas. So plenty of storm energy Monday and Tuesday as well. No short supply, seeing 2,000-3,000s all the way up there into portions of the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. So looking again at another ingredient, this is wind shear. We're going to have a lot more of it early next week as a big trough comes in, and it's going to have a big jet stream on the eastern side of it. And right now, it looks like Monday, quite a bit of ingredients coming together. You got high moisture return, high instability or storm energy, and wind shear. I think Iowa could be the epicenter of some severe weather on Monday, and then that wind shear shifts east as we go into Tuesday. So looking here at Monday first, it looks like Monday could line up to be a more substantial day and widespread day for severe weather in the Midwest, including the upper Midwest, all the way back down here into the central southern plains. We'll be on high alert for that. And then going into Tuesday, this is lining up from the lower Great Lakes region into the Ohio Valley, parts of the Midwest still like Illinois and Missouri, and then back there toward Texas in the southern plains. We'll be keeping a very close eye on that too. And then finishing off the month there on Wednesday, maybe some lingering severe weather in Texas and or Virginia and the Carolinas. Again, that is still 8 days away here, so we are still several days out. Things can change between now and then. But looking here at what's been consistent though is the heavy rain signal there in the southern plains. This is because of successive rounds of rain over the next several days. We have rounds and rounds and rounds of thunderstorms. I think Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, a lot of these areas getting 2 to 4 inches worth of rain. And then up into the upper Midwest, this is going to be mainly with the cold front early next week, but we could be dumping a good 1 to 2 inches from Iowa up into northern Wisconsin and Minnesota. Lighter amounts as you swing east over here toward Michigan, northern Indiana, northern Ohio, and northeast Illinois, an area that I'm keeping an eye on for a rapid onset drought potentially as we go into early May. And why do I say that? Well, let's look at our temperatures during the first 7 days of May. This is at our friends over there at the Climate Prediction Center. Their 8 to 14 day temperature outlook looks pretty warm up there into the northern Rockies and really the western half of the United States. A little bit warm over there in the eastern seaboard. We are cooling off down into Texas, a little bit below normal down there. And let's look at the precipitation outlook. And here's why I do have some concern, right? For northeast Illinois, northern Indiana, northern Ohio, and lower Michigan is because we're seeing below normal below normal precipitation in these areas, and that actually could lead to a rapid onset drought perhaps once more as we go into early May, and then the precipitation really kind of staying across the south in beneficial areas too though, right? Like Phoenix, Albuquerque, over there in El Paso, Texas, Lubbock, down to the Rio Grande. Yeah, we're going to be seeing above normal rains, and then that could swing over to Florida areas that need it as well, and then up the eastern seaboard, and then a little area of above normal precipitation there up into Washington State, northern Idaho, and western Montana too. Now we have to keep in mind there still is a lot of river flooding, right? The last couple of months we've been seeing a lot of rain in March and April so far across Arkansas, Tennessee, and Kentucky. And with river flow, that means a lot of that water that's been running off has been going into the tributary rivers, and those tributary rivers into the main river, which is the Mississippi River. And so from Memphis all the way down towards New Orleans, there's a lot of river flooding going on in the Mississippi, moderate, major river flood stages. So make sure that you are staying aware of the river flooding situation into early May and any low-lying areas too there from Memphis down towards New Orleans for some flooding issues across low-lying areas, poor drainage areas as we go into early May, especially when we do get the potential for some heavy rainfall. If you do enjoy my forecast, make sure to give it a like, thumbs up down below. Also comment down below and subscribe to my channel for the latest updates, and I'll keep you updated on this channel, and I'll see you all in the next video.